today we're going to talk about some things that I feel I'm very passionate about. It's very important to me, and and I want to make sure that we have free and open dialogue. So I'm going to share some thoughts, but the real gems of what we can talk about today come from your questions. And so you can always ask questions about anything, just raise your hand and we'll pause and we'll talk. So everything that was shared is applicable to my professional life and the things that I've done, and that's all well and good. But for today's topic, I think the most pertinent piece of my background that you might want to know about is that I'm a husband and I'm a father, and I have 3 children. And we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and how to keep our children safe using the modern technologies and tools that are available to them. And so I don't only speak to you as a law enforcement professional that has seen this type of investigation or read about that, but also as a parent who has had the very same concerns and worries that many of you no doubt have faced. When you read the newspaper, do we read newspapers anymore? When you read online or when you see the news, and you hear about maybe a young person somehow being victimized, and there was some type of connection to their internet activity, that always made me worried. What are my kids doing? Right? That's what I was worried about. And so that's something that might be on your minds as well. Now, so I'll start off by saying, broadly speaking, there's 2 general areas when it comes to being safe with your online activity. And the first one, I think, is the smaller topic. I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. And that is about the physical devices, maybe the laptop that you own, the phones, the tablets that you have. And there are lots of people out there that would like to exploit that, take advantage of that device to get information off it, access to maybe your banking information, your pictures, whatever personal documents you might have. And partly because there's so many devices, it would be almost less efficient use of our time to try to talk to you about every possible way to keep those safe. So really that expectation would be on you as the owner of the device to learn about that particular phone, that particular tablet. You could look at the user manual, you can go online and find out, how do I keep my Android phone safe? How do I keep my Dell laptop safe? And there will be lots of videos and lots of tutorials on how you can put antivirus software on there, how you can set the restrictions up so that you can have maybe some type of a better sense of security for yourself or for your children who might use your devices or even your home network. And so that's not really where I want to focus the attention, because there's too much of that, it's too different. And if I were to try to tell you, if I were to try to explain how you can make one particular type of iPhone safer, but it doesn't really help with maybe an Amazon Fire tablet, that's just a waste of our valuable time at the moment today. More importantly is the device. Every device will do. They're computers. They will do what you ask them to do, or they will do what you let them do if you're not paying attention to how you use them. So now we're talking about the human component, the habits that we or our children might engage in when they're using their internet-enabled devices. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about something that can reach out to the internet and that can also allow the influences of the outside world into our homes and into our families. Perhaps your family's like mine. We have certain standards where we don't want certain bad things, right? There's lots of bad things out there in the world. We don't want those images. We don't want those discussions coming in to our children. If my wife and I want to speak to the children about a difficult topic, we definitely want to have, the spirit of that conversation should be driven by the motivation that my wife and I might have and the questions that my children might have. We don't want some outside influence, again, through negative pictures or some type of negative rhetoric to drive the conversation. And so we try to, we start with ourselves. We start with our own personal habits. We start with how we use the devices, how we talk about it, and then we model that behavior for our children, and then we make it very clear to our children what is expected of them, and then we tell them why. And so, first and foremost, one of the things that I really like, one of the tools that I like to help me, because sometimes I've been caught in that same trap of wasting my time. I maybe come home from a long day, and I sit in my chair, and I pull out my phone, and I just start scrolling through whatever it is that interests me, right? And maybe I'm looking at the news, or maybe I'm watching some YouTube videos about some hobby that I like. And 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, turns into a half hour, turns into an hour, and the next thing you know, the night is gone. It's time to go to bed and get ready to start the next day. Now, some days that's going to be okay for my family. Maybe everybody's off doing something different. Maybe I'm not needed at that moment. But more often than not, there's probably something I can do to support my wife and my children, support the household a little bit better. Instead of just sitting in the chair, becoming sedentary, perhaps I could get up and help do the chores and just, help lift the household in some way. There's got to be something better than just sitting on the internet for me. But the additional danger is my kids walk through the room, they see there's Dad sitting on the internet. They come back through 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour later. And what's Dad doing? Dad is still sitting on the internet. So if Dad's doing it, it must be okay, right? And what am I teaching my children? Well, that's the lowest level of problems, is maybe just wasting some time. From there, it can start to become a little more serious. Now, I want to talk frankly about what the outside world will sometimes want to do, especially with young people. They would like to exploit the emotions of young people for everything, especially for financial gain or for some type of gain of power or influence. And so there is, I would say, statistically speaking, the teenage group is probably most targeted, because teenagers are a lot more concerned with image and what their peer groups think than I do at my age, right? If my hair doesn't look just perfect, I don't care so much. But if my teenage daughter goes out the door, maybe everything's not in place, maybe she's a little bit more worried than I am about what other people might think. And so, the danger is that there are people who will reach out to us, or especially our children, and pretend to be their friends. They might reach out through social media. They might reach out through, texting. Sometimes the initial reach out isn't even a real person. We live in a world with AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, bots, robots, automatic computer programs that will just send messages out to as many people as you can. I'm sure you've all got them. Sometimes they say something like, I get one all the time that says, "Hey Sam, have you thought about selling your house?" My name's not Sam, and no, I'm not interested in selling my house. Well, then I'll get one sometimes that might ask me about my political questions, something I might be interested in like that, or investment opportunities. And almost always, there's a link for me to tap, right? Now, that link itself is a trap. Don't click on that. That'll just open up to a world of hurt. But if they send the right message to the right young person at the right time in their life, or maybe even the right adult, maybe you're so worried that week about paying the bills that when they send you a text message that says, would you like to earn a little bit of extra money? Well, now they've found a vulnerability in us that we might not have told anybody about, but we feel it. So maybe I do click on that, or maybe I do respond. And then a real person, usually a criminal, a scammer, takes over, right? So the message goes back, they start reaching out, they start having a conversation. And if it's maybe about a job or about earning some more money, then you ask your questions, well, how much? And they say this, that, and the other. And then the common scam eventually is that they promise you that you can make $5,000 in a week from working from home. And all you have to do is send me $100 to get all the initial stuff, and as soon as you get that, then you know how to do it. Well, the minute you send the $100 off, if they don't actually exploit that and take more from your bank account or your credit card or whatnot, nothing comes, right? And so that's a very low-level financial scam. What about our children, right? Probably the most dangerous messages that are coming out, in my opinion, have to do with exploiting the innocence of our youth. And again, there are people that will ask for photos. They will start off asking for innocent photos. And everybody's probably heard, they probably know something about sending inappropriate or compromising photos. And so I'll tell you, as a professional police officer, I don't know anybody that just started their life of crime by waking up one day and saying, today I'm going to steal a car. They always start small. Those small, minute, little choices begin with maybe shoplifting some gum from the convenience store, cheating on a small test at school, until you start to maybe steal $20 from your mom's purse. And then you become comfortable with small levels of poor decisions until you find yourself one day thinking, as a criminal, it's no big deal if I steal this car, it's just a car. Right? Well, to the rest of us, we think that's a pretty big deal. Well, that same pattern happens in nearly every other aspect of poor decision making, and especially with our online activities. You might think, if you received a text message right off the bat that said, what's your name, what's your address, what's your home phone number, what's your email address, what's your bank account number, what school do you go to, when do you go to school, when are you doing A, B, and C? That would make you very uncomfortable if somebody asked you to share all that personal information. Fortunately for most teenagers, the same is true. If somebody were to come very hard, very quickly, then they also would say, they would realize that something is wrong. But the problem is that they come as wolves in sheep's clothing, like the fable goes, right? And so they start off as your friend, they start with maybe some joking, and our youth, and sometimes us as adults, we don't realize just how much information we might be giving away unintentionally. And I'm sharing in a text message that, we're going to go on vacation to San Diego. What does that mean? Well, it probably means that nobody's home this weekend. Well, now they know that nobody's home. Well, have you told them before what school you go to? Have you told them before what town you live in? Can a really easy search of your Facebook, determine what your name is, what town you live in, and then from there, public records, what address you're at, and then they know that you're gone for the whole weekend, and then somebody comes and breaks into your house. This happens all the time. Okay, once again, we're talking about just stuff, right? I don't want my house broken into, you don't want your house broken into, but compared to some of the terrible things that can happen to our innocent youth, where they confide in you, they trust in you, and they send so much personal information to somebody where they're then exploited, sometimes in a very serious and a very graphic way. Well, that is just way up here compared to having somebody break in and steal your TV and your stuff. Both of them bad, but you can buy a new TV, you can buy new stuff. The long-lasting effects of unintentionally confiding in somebody and then sharing information, especially personal, very personal and intimate pictures, that could take years to get over, especially if you're a young person. So I've come and I've spoken before, and I know that there's a wide range of ages in here, but I think that I can comfortably alert you to some of those very specific concerns without being alarmist. There are people that want to take the pictures of you, and first they want to then embarrass you and shame you. They want to then say, they want to get to a trusting point where you have shared an intimate picture with yourself. You might have the emotion that this person loves you, this person cares for you, that they want to spend all their time with you. And so then you share something with them, and if they're satisfied with one, no, they want more. And then the next thing you know, many times, they start then turning around to blackmail you. If you don't give me more, I will tell your mom. How do they know my mom? Well, maybe your mom's got a Facebook. You friended her on Facebook or on Instagram, and they've already done their homework, and they send a link. Look, I can easily post this picture of you to your mom, to your dad. I know what school you go to. I can post it to the school website, to their page, right? And all of a sudden, you become very, very afraid. You become willing to do whatever it is that scammer wants so that your peace and your safety can come back to you. You'll pay them money. And sometimes they'll want you to come meet up with them. They'll want you to lie to your loved ones, not tell your family or friends what's really going on, and they'll want to meet somewhere. Then from there you can imagine how they would further want to exploit a person. The Chandler Police Department has a concerted effort for human trafficking. We work every day to try to protect, especially the most vulnerable population of our community, our youth. And there's plenty of work for us to do because, unfortunately, so many people are a little too free and giving with information. Okay. How do we keep this from happening? How do we foster an environment, especially in our homes, so that if one of our children finds themselves in this difficult and unspeakable situation, I say unspeakable because they don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed. They don't. Who wants to go to their mom or dad, especially maybe it's a teenage boy going to the mom or the teenage daughter telling the dad, I sent pictures of myself. I thought it was to another boy. I have no idea who it is. Now this is, nobody wants to see that. Very embarrassing. But this is what I would think is probably one of the greatest tools that every family has to combat this situation. It is loving and open and honest communication. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lifetime to build and maintain relationships with our family members so that if something serious comes up like this, that they will come to you and say, I messed up. I think something bad's happening. This is what I did. Here's my phone. Take a look at what's going on. Right? If you are afraid to show your spouse or your parents, right, depending on the situation, what you're doing online, then it might be time to have an honest assessment with yourself about what you're doing and whether or not you should be doing it. my wife and we do our very best to be as open with each other as we can. I know what the passcode is on her phone. She knows what the passcode is on my phone. If she were to pick my phone up, I wouldn't stress out at all. I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't yell and say, put that down, don't look, right? I think the biggest secret we have from each other is that we use Amazon's separate accounts so that we can buy the Christmas and birthday gifts, right? That's our big secret from each other, is what we're doing on Amazon, right? But my children, when they were very young, I'll tell you a story. It's silly, but it's true. So it was Christmas time many years ago, and we wanted to give our children, they're all about a year and a half to 2 years apart, and they were all old enough where we felt that they could use like a little iPod type of device. The device had, I'll just call it an iPod, and the device had the ability to send it kind of like text messages, but not. It wasn't a full phone, but it had some internet connectivity, and it had the ability to go out to certain websites that we went into the thing and said it was safe to go to and whatnot. They could send messages, and so we could put a safe list. You can text grandma and grandpa and your cousins and everything like that. But we wanted to impress upon them what they were getting, and so so Christmas morning came for us, and all the regular presents. But I set it up so that a gift went to my son. It was a UV light. He opens this up, and it wasn't from me. It was from what we called Sandy Claus. Okay? Not Santa Claus, but Sandy Claus. It was kind of this mystery thing. They're like, what's this? Who's Sandy Claus? My other daughter, she got some tongs from Sandy Claus. Tongs, what is this? And my other daughter got some thick safety gloves, again, from Sandy Claus. They were all confused, right? And so then they didn't notice, but sitting over on the table, there was a present, and it was wrapped up, and it was to my children, to all of them, from Sandy Claus. So they're like, what's this? Well, I'll tell you. I can't believe my wife went along with this, but she did. But in our house, we love animals. We have a lot of different pets. I got us a pet scorpion, a very large emperor scorpion. We had it for the longest time. It was wonderful. It didn't talk to us. You didn't pet it. You didn't do anything. It sat there. It ate bugs and whatever. But inside of the terrarium, we had the 3 little iPods. They were there. Now, when they opened this thing up, they couldn't see what was in there. It was too dark. And so, with the clues that they got, the sun turns on the UV light. And sure enough, with that scorpion, it started glowing. And it wasn't terribly big, but when you're a little kid, it was this big to them. And so they see these gifts in there, but they see this dangerous and scary looking scorpion. And so then they started talking, and they figured, okay, if you shine the light, and if I put the gloves on, and if I carefully, I can use the tongs, and I can pull them out. This is a big, elaborate, crazy thing. And they still talk about how crazy it was that we did this. But when they finally got these iPods out, I had set them up so that the home screen on every single one, at first they changed it later, but the home screen was a scorpion. It was a picture of a scorpion. And they thought, oh, that's scary. We used that opportunity. We said, look, these might seem like toys to you, but to us, they're tools. And they can be very dangerous. Would you put your hand in next to that scorpion? No. Okay. And when you tap that home screen, and for now there's a scorpion on there, but you can change it. But I want you to know that thing can sting you. It can create problems for you. If you're not careful on how you use this, you will be more sorry that you touched this than if you touched Santa Claus. And it was this elaborate thing that we put together. But my children are now 19, 21, almost 23, and they remember that. And I've heard them telling their cousins and telling others, I don't think you should be doing that. You should probably tell somebody about that. That could lead you into trouble. And I thank my lucky stars that that lesson stuck with my children, that they realized I can have a lot of fun with this. This can be very safe as long as I treat it with respect. That's my story of fostering a relationship with my children where they can tell me. So I don't know if it was months or a couple years later, but my son came running in one day. Okay? And he had his little iPod thing. He's like, Dad, I saw some pornography. But I was worried. I was like, oh, what's going on? Because I have the Wi-Fi set up with the parental controls and the filter. Like none of that's supposed to be coming into my home. I set things up to be safe. And I didn't want to freak out. I didn't want to scare him. So I said, okay, please show me. Show me what you saw, what you were doing. And he opens it up, and it was an ad. It wasn't pornography. It was just somebody in a bathing suit. But he didn't know. He was so young, he didn't know. And so then that gave Mom and I an opportunity to say, oh, thank you for sharing. And then we were able to say, in this case, this isn't as bad as you thought it might be. This is just an advertisement for a bathing suit. It's not bad. So we were able to have a little bit more of an age-appropriate discussion about pornography. So my daughters that were older, if that would have happened to them, then we would have maybe had a different discussion because of age and experience and whatnot. And so by not, in my case, I wanted to freak out, like, oh my goodness, what did you see? What's going on? What were you doing? Well, that wouldn't help. That would just make him want to shut down and not share. And so a number of times, somebody tried to scam my daughter. Now, maybe because I'm a police officer and I talk about these scams at home around the dinner table, like, oh, hey, guess what I saw today? Somebody fell for this scam. It was genius. It was sophisticated. I would have been tricked maybe, but now I know. Well, having these conversations, my daughter was able to come. She's like, look at this. I think this is a scam. Sure enough, it was, and it was very sophisticated. And so, staying aware of what's out there as a parent and having those conversations with your children will help them become aware, and hopefully will help them come to you, maybe before they click on something or before they share something that they shouldn't. And so it's building that relationship bit by bit, conversation by conversation, and encouraging that trust and that openness. And again, I'll reiterate, if you're doing something secret with your technology and your online performance of what you're interacting with and who you're interacting with, if you're doing something that you don't want people to see, especially loved ones, close loved ones, then you really need to look into your heart and decide, am I doing something that I am proud of, or should I change my habits and change my behavior? So, I've been talking for about a half hour so far, it looks like a little bit. I want to know if there's anything that I've said that anybody has questions about, or anything on the general topic that might move the discussion forward. Please let me know if you've got anything that you would like me to discuss. Yes, sir.
So if you get a text message sounds let's say kid finds that kind of message and comes to you,
what is expected out of such messages? Or another, are we supposed to report this somewhere? Or is there a mechanism where we can report, okay, these are the type of messages we are reading or something like that?
Okay, so your question, and just to make sure everybody heard it, the question is if a spam message comes in, and maybe it's to you or to one of your children, but you know they come to you or you see it. The question is, do you ignore it or do you report these things to law enforcement? And so this reminds me of a story. I'm going to tell a story. So years ago, I was in junior high, and we had just gone through some training. It was back then there was a program called DARE, and the police came in and they would talk about drugs and alcohol. They would talk about the dangers of everything from even smoking regular cigarettes, and they just said, if you see these things, there's some things like if you see, something that's unhealthy and dangerous for you, don't touch it and go tell somebody, right? Well, it seems so uncanny, but just like a week or two after that, I don't know what happened. I don't know if a whole cigarette truck just fell apart in front of the school, but we're going to school one day, and there are cigarettes all over the street, everywhere. They're the sidewalk, the street, the yards. There's like a whole carton or just a whole plane blew up in the sky, and all these cigarettes just rained down. Like it was crazy. Most of us wouldn't even touch them. We wouldn't bend over. We wouldn't touch them. We wouldn't whatnot, because either because our parents told us something, or because of this DARE program, or maybe it's whatever it was. We wouldn't touch them. But there were a lot of people that did, and they collected them and they saved them. And of course, the school knew about it. So, like by the second hour of school, every teacher had to make an announcement that said, empty your backpacks, empty whatever you've got in your pockets, throw all the cigarettes away. If you do this now, nobody's going to get in trouble. And so a lot of kids got up, and they threw all their cigarettes away and whatnot. Okay. So spam messages and these scams are kind of like that day where the street was littered with cigarettes. There is so many spam messages that law enforcement simply cannot investigate every single one. It's impossible. So the first method of defense is, again, like the cigarettes, like the scorpion, is not to touch it. Just swipe it, delete it, don't fall for it. Teach your children the same thing. You tell them, like we would tell our children, or whenever I go to schools, I tell them, there is a day coming where somebody that you know is going to offer you drugs at a party. They're going to offer you alcohol at a party. And you're going to be a young teenager, and it's not supposed to be there. It's not legal for you to drink. It's not healthy for you to take that stuff. It's not good for you. You need to decide now what it is that you will do when that day comes. I promise you that day's coming. And so we would try to get the children or the groups that we speak to understand that this is coming to them. If they make the decision now, I will not touch that alcohol. I will not touch those drugs, especially as a young teenager, right? Then they can make the decision, and when the situation arrives, they don't have to stress. They've already made the decision. It's the same, unfortunately, with emails and scammers. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. If that message comes through and it's too good to be true, there's everything from, like we discussed the financial situation where maybe somebody just needs to earn some extra money and this miracle text comes in. Or maybe somebody, unfortunately, is just feeling so alone in the world and they want somebody to love so much. And then out of the blue, this email comes in promising the best relationship in the world. It's not how it works, right? People don't just out of the blue reach out to you to give you money, to give you attention and love and support. It's a scam. They want something from you. They want to exploit you. And so if you think to yourself now, when this message comes in, I will just delete it, I will ignore it, I will not fall for it, then you will be all the same. Now, if you learn that a loved one has become a victim, so sometimes the elderly will fall for certain scams, especially ones involving retirement income or whatnot, or sometimes taking out mortgages on their property. And if you learn that somebody has been victimized, absolutely reach out to law enforcement. We will investigate where there's a victim to the full extent that we can. Many times, unfortunately, it's a dead end. The scammer might not even live in the country, right? And we just, even if we can find out who they were, they're in another jurisdiction. We just can't get them. But we can at least try, and wherever there's a victim, we will do that. So, great questions. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So my question is like, let's say you're in a high school, right? And the environment does a lot of peer pressure. And my question is, what would happen if your peers are pressuring you to do things that you don't want to do, but also if you fall for it and you didn't realize it at first, but after you did it, you realized it and you lied about it. Will that have consequences for lying about it, or the two? Like, what's the difference between truth and lying about some peer pressure?
Okay, so you brought up some real, that's probably one of the best questions I've heard in a long time. Thank you for asking. So the question, just to make sure, and the hypothetical was, what if you're in high school? Let's say you're in high school and you got some peer pressure to do something that you don't want to do. So let's work this backwards. So first, there's a difference between peers and people who say they might be your friends, people who are friendly and smile at you, and people who are your true friends. A true friend might look at you with a very stern face, and with all the love in their heart, I'm going to point at you, sir, and they might point and say, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that. Well, there's no love in my voice. I'm not looking very friendly when I say that. I'm saying, don't do that. That will mess things up. That person that speaks the truth to you is more of a friend than the person who will promise you that everything's going to be okay and might try to convince you to do something you're not comfortable with. And so I would say, and it's hard because we all want to have friends. But if somebody is trying to convince you to do something that makes you uncomfortable, I would say they're probably not a true friend. And then go find the person that is giving you good advice. Okay, now you've accidentally fallen for their trick. You've done something that you realize is wrong, and you don't want to be in that situation forever. This is where, again, being honest and open with close family members and friends. Maybe it's mom and dad today, or maybe you're very close to a cousin, or maybe it's just another friend at school. But somebody that is truly trustworthy, and you say, look, I accidentally, I did this, I think this might be a scam, or I shared some information I shouldn't. What should I do? The true friend will help you through that. They'll say, well, you know what? It's kind of serious. Yeah, that's a bad thing. But let's go talk to mom and dad and see if they can help us fix this, right? Because the earlier on a problem is, the better it is to fix it. You don't want to wait until it gets bad. So thank you. Great question, sir. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so you're a little bit far away, but I think the question is about the spam calling on your phone. Okay, so this one falls, there's a couple things that you can do. This is more of a technological solution. Now, if I were king of the world for just one day, pretty much at the top of my list would be to banish all the spammers, especially the ones that call me forever. We'd send them to an island or something. I don't know. Let them bother each other somewhere. But until that day happens, well, your individual device will frequently have a way to silence unknown callers. So look into the instruction manual for maybe your phone or something like that to see what settings you can do. My phone allows me to do that. And in my case, I also subscribe, I get my cell phone service through Verizon. That's just the company that I use. And Verizon has some products that also try to filter out the scammers. And I guess it does a good job, but I still get some, right? We all do. And so the third thing that you can do, there's a national registry. I cannot remember the name of the website. It might be donotcall.org. But if you search up, if you Google National Phone Registry to stop scammers and spammers, right, you'll find it. And it's run by the government. And so then what you do is you put in the phone number that you don't want them to call. And so, okay, take my cell phone number, I put it in, and it sits on their list for, I can't remember if it's 3 years, 5 years, but 5 years? Thank you, sir. So it goes for 5 years. And then, if you do get a spam call, and that organization has called you contrary to your wishes, correct me if I'm wrong, but you then have the ability to sue them, to seek recompense. And a lot of people have got a lot of money off of spammers because they broke this rule. Does that sound familiar to you, sir?
I think that the website is donotcall.gov.
Donotcall.gov, okay. So it's just, you have a phone, you're a target, right? If you're going to answer, you're a target, you know. You're going to answer, you're going to sound so nice to them, and they're going to try to be nice to you, and they're going to try to convince you to go to the store, buy a bunch of Apple gift cards, and give them the numbers, and they're going to tell you it's because the IRS, you owe the IRS money, or because a loved one's in jail somewhere. They're going to tell you something, but it's all a scam. So great question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I've got 2 questions. Number one is, what if, like, I was in California one time in my cousin's house, a place, and my brother walks up, and I was my brother, but he said, it's me. I didn't answer, I looked through the eyepiece, but what should you do if someone knocks on the door, and it's me, even if it's a family member?
Okay, so the question now you're asking is, if somebody knocks on your door and they say they're a family member?
Like, if they say, it's me, but they are your family member, and it's like, I have a brother, he's also done me like 2.5 years, and he said, it's me. I didn't know who it's me was. I looked through the eyepiece and heard from my brother. I didn't open the door because he didn't say his first name, that if your brother go up, open the door up. I didn't know that, and I thought it was some stranger. So what would you do if something like that happens?
Well, there's a number of things you could do. If there's a window next to your door, you can look out the window and see who it is. And if you have a peephole on your door, or if you have a smart doorbell, you can do that. Or if somebody says it's your brother, hopefully you have your brother's cell phone number, and you can call and be like, hey, are you at my house? And if he says, yeah, it's hot outside, let me in. Okay, then you can open the door. If he says, no, well then don't open the door, right?
Okay. And my second question is like, let's say about, like, it's not about peer pressure, but it's about something else I've experienced myself, like when I was in school or college. Like, well, I don't want to be recommended for this one, but let's say if you are somewhere, like in unknown, like undisclosed location, and they say like, give up your money or something like that. Like, what should you do if someone's pressuring you to like do something that you don't want? Like, drugs, like I was out of there as well, like I was in community in New York, and he said like, can you get arrested for calling the police at the last minute?
No, so you can always call the police, If you need help and it's an emergency, 911. Anywhere in the United States and in many parts of the world, they still use 911. Other parts of the world might use a different number. Whatever that number is, you call and we will come and help. So don't you ever worry about calling us, okay?
I mean, like, there's a scenario once, and like I saw a scenario once, and this family had friends, right? And they were all drinking, and then they didn't know this, so the girl was having a birthday party. She drinks some shots, something like that, like, I don't know how many she had, and then after that she like vomited, puked, other stuff. And then the family called the police at the last minute, and they thought that they get arrested. Like, can the police arrest you for not calling them under the last minute?
No. But I would tell you that if there is something dangerous going on, and if somebody's life is in danger, the bigger worry is to preserve life and keep people safe. And if we make decisions and we put ourselves in a bad spot and we open ourselves up to some type of criminal liability, well, the mature grown-up thing to do is to preserve life first. And if I'm going to get in trouble because I made some bad decisions, at least I'm making good decisions by trying to keep somebody safe. Right? Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll wrap it up by thanking you for your time, for your attention, for sharing. I would point you, if you ever have any questions or concerns, I'm sorry, I thought you were raising your hand. Our website. My information's there. We have all sorts of other contact information on the Chandler Police website. Please reach out. We are all too willing to listen to your concern, to answer your questions, and try to resolve and help you with whatever your situation might be. So once again, thank you for having the police department hosting us here, and it's my pleasure to come and visit with you. Thank you all, and have a good evening.